Hey guys, this is Amber Rain Davis from NotableInk.com, and I'm thrilled to be hopping along with Altenew for their March stamp and die release, blog hop, and giveaway. Be sure to check out my blog post below for a chance at a giveaway and follow along on the hop so that you're eligible for other prizes as well. So today I'm doing a very different project. This isn't a card, as you can see. This is the front page in my Zentangle Journal. Some of you may know I'm a certified Zentangle teacher, and I've had Zentangle on the brain this week because my Altenew Academy class, Zentangle for Card Makers, was live and interactive this week. So this project is really inspired by that. So we're going to create a book plate today. I'm featuring the new stamp Book Club. So I have my journal here, and I have the front page slid into my MISTI. So my MISTI is sitting on the book, and then I have the front page kind of flipped in there and held down with 3 magnets. I have the main Book Club stamp here, and I've stamped it in VersaFine Onyx black ink. Then I'm going to go ahead and put it back in the MISTI because I realize I want to do my sentiment. Now, my name sentiment that you see there was actually a gift from Altenew from a couple years ago. If you guys were a customer, then you may have also received this stamp. And so I was thrilled that it actually fit in this circle. It was just like meant to be. So I'm double stamping these to make sure I get a good impression. And I'm going to make sure that this ink is completely dry. I believe I heat set it before I start watercoloring. And I also did some Zentangle. So I did that off camera because I really was doing that not at my desk. I was, sitting on the couch. I think I also went to a soccer game and kind of doing it all over the place. So if you are interested in learning some of these patterns, then definitely check out my class over in the Altenew Academy. It's had a lot of great feedback this week, and it's been so fun to interact with all the students and see incredible projects that they've put together in the homework. So if you did take the class, then this is Muka. This is a pattern that you learned, and this is a technique that you can do to add a little more drama to the pattern by just filling in those little creases with black. So we are going to watercolor this image. Now, it is important to note that this paper is not watercolor paper. It's a journal, so it's more like a heavyweight paper, kind of like a maybe mixed media type of paper. And I'm using the Altenew watercolor brush markers. This is the color Rouge. And for the leaves, I'm using Moss. Now, those 2 flowers over on the left, I'm pretty sure that I got mixed up and used Ruby Red on those, because you can see that it's not as peach. It's more of a brighter pink. But I only used Moss on the leaves, and I'm just going to show a few of these because it's the same thing for each one. And then I'm going to show you how I did the background. So this background is with evening gray, and what I did is I squeezed out some onto my craft mat and I watered it down pretty significantly with some water. And this is a number 6 Silver Brush Company round brush, and I'm basically just picking up the pigment and pouncing it down on the paper. So to me, this kind of intricate book plate looked like it might be in a vintage book or kind of like antique-y. So that's what I wanted my background to look like. So kind of like a parchment feel to it, a fibrous type of paper. So I don't want it to be a solid wash. So I'm just pouncing it down, wet brush onto dry paper. And then I'm going to go back in again with more pigment and get some darker shades where the shadows would be. So underneath the flowers where it would cast a shadow, underneath this circle where the sentiments are, I want to darken up those areas. So with the same technique though, I'm just kind of pouncing it around. And I think I did that twice to darken up those shadows. Once I get those areas darkened up, I'm going to go into the areas in between where the mukas are and darken that up as well. I want to leave the space in between the stamp and the muka a lighter shade. At the end of the project, I do go in right on that muka border that's closest to the stamp, and I add some graphite for shading. So it's a different color. It helped the muka pop off the page, but I didn't want the same evening gray color. I wanted a different color, and so you'll get to see that in the final photo. So Here we are just adding some shading here, making it a little bit darker. Again, just pouncing it around in there. If you get any harsh edges, like I'm gonna get a harsh edge in that one right there, you can see it. Then you just wet your brush and you go in with a wet brush and just soften those edges. If you need to scrub the paper a little bit with more water, you can do that, or you can just add a little bit more pigment and do like a wet on wet technique, and that will soften those edges nicely. So I thought that I would just shade the tangles with graphite so that the centerpiece was the focal piece, but that looked a little strange to me to not have any color on it. So I decided to do the ribbons in that same rouge color. So I'm just gonna watercolor those in, and that'll add a little bit more color. At this point, I was still thinking that I was gonna keep the Mocha white and just shade them with graphite, but as you saw in the introductory photo, I changed that as well. I shaded the orbs with pencil. I'm checking to see if my painting is dry, and I'm gonna do something I've never done before, which is create a gem in the center here. Now, I wanted to make sure that my color pencils blended well, and I've seen people use Gamsol. I've also seen people dip their color pencil in Vaseline, and I thought, why not just put the Vaseline straight on the paper? So we'll see how this goes. I really like how it turned out. Because I've not done a gem without this technique, this is my first one, I don't know how it would have turned out without the Vaseline on the paper, but I do like how it turned out. So I don't know, you'll have to let me know if you try it, if it's any different than doing it on regular paper. So I'll have all the colors of the pencils that I'm using linked below. This is a really, really light cream color. I think that's actually the name of it, is cream. And I want my highlight to be in the center. I'm going to go really dark with this gemstone, and I was worried if I maybe had the highlight at the bottom and the darkness through the center that you wouldn't be able to read the sentiment. So I'm going to have my highlight in the center. I have another kind of peachy pencil here, and I'm just blending that in. I'm holding my pencil more horizontal versus straight up and down. This is Carmine Red that I'm using now. And that's because I want kind of a broader surface on the paper. I want it to blend better, and I don't necessarily want any sharp edges. So that was my thinking behind that. I'm not really very experienced with color pencils, and so at this point, I'm just kind of like, okay, we'll just see how this blends. This was permanent red, I think this was, that I'm using now. So I'm just adding another layer, and I'm going to take that all the way out to the edge, all the way around. And again, you can see how far away from the tip I'm holding the pencil. I'm not using really hardly any pressure at all. So, and it's also just kind of gliding over the surface as well because we've added the Vaseline. This is raspberry, and these are Prismacolor pencils. And so now I'm going to start using a little more pressure because I want the darkest part of this gemstone to be at those outer edges. So this is going to be kind of like a ruby type color. And so I'm using more pressure, and I'm kind of getting it more into the nooks of the paper to get more solid pressure. And you can see here, now I'm choking down further down on the pencil so that I can get more pressure, and I'm using the point more. So now I'm just going to put a little Vaseline on my finger. Again, we're just kind of seeing how this works out. And I'm going to blend it. And I kind of like how that looks. I thought that kind of looked pretty cool. It's blending it in nicely. You don't have those kind of areas of white showing through. So I'm going to do that a little bit more. And I'm being careful not to draw all of that dark color into the center. It's going to be really important to preserve your highlight. So here I'm just kind of wiping some of it off. I'm going around. The other thing I kind of liked about the Vaseline, and again, I don't know if this would have happened without the Vaseline, but, and here I'm just buffing the inside and there's no Vaseline on my finger, but I like how the sentiment is staying really dark black. It's not getting that kind of waxy cast that you get with color pencils. I don't know if that's because of the Vaseline. I am trying to avoid, going directly over the letters a little bit, but I do actually draw over them. So again, just adding a little more pigment. I'm going to add some more of that peach color to the center. I lost a little bit of the vibrancy with the Vaseline, so I'm going to go back through all of my colors and reestablish and add another layer and work that up. So I'm going to be cutting some of this footage out so that you don't have to watch the whole thing over again. So this is that lightest color. I'm not taking this lightest cream color all the way into the center because I do want it to be white in the center. And in fact, I will come in with a white pencil and brighten up that center, since this paper is more of a cream color, kind of like almost like a watercolor color type paper. So I'm just using that pencil to blend a little bit. I think I probably put a little Vaseline there, and I'm buffing it around a little bit, kind of testing it out, seeing what's going on there. And then I decided it's not nearly dark enough around the edges. So that's what I've seen people do, is kind of dip the pencil into Vaseline. And this is, I think this is called dark umber. It is. I think I couldn't read it. It's called dark umber. So this is a brown. It's a really dark brown and with some red tones. And I'm going to use this to darken up all the way around. So I'm not using quite as much pressure as I did with the raspberry, but I am drawing that out into the gemstone. And I'm going to go back through my colors. I'm going to add some of the raspberry next. Was it raspberry? Was that the darkest color? Yeah, it was. So I'm going to add some raspberry, and then I'll go back through the colors. And again, I'm going to cut some of this out. And now I'm trying to blend it some more. I'm not up on the tip of my pencil anymore. I'm using the side again so that I don't get any harsh strokes. And I'm just trying to get a nice blend in there. I'm not planning on using the Vaseline again, so I want to make sure that I get good blending with my pencil. And I like how rich it's looking. And, at about this point, I'm realizing that I'm not going to be able to leave the things that I've tangled just white with graphite. It looks way out of place. I'm also realizing at this point too that my watercolor that I did it doesn't have enough shadow in it. So I'm going to need to go in and darken up those areas with color pencils as well. So this turned into a much more involved project than I had originally anticipated. Like I said, it's rare that I use color pencils because for me, or maybe for anybody, I feel like color pencils, here's the white. I feel like color pencils are a big investment in time. Like, you really have to put in the time to get a good blend and to really make it look nice, I think. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not efficient with it. But I ended up using color pencils on this whole thing, with the exception of the background. The background, I really like how that came out with the watercolor. And the leaves, I don't think I used, in fact, I didn't. I didn't use any color pencil on the leaves because I felt like those had good shadow. But I was a little bit nervous about, and this is that brown, I'm just adding some shadow with the brown. I was a little bit nervous about continuing to watercolor on this paper because I was getting some warping to the page, and I didn't want it to start pilling up because it's not watercolor paper, and it's not really meant to hold a lot of water. So again, I'll have the colors listed below in the blog, and I'm just adding a lighter green, then I'll come in with a dark green. And after I get the dark green in, I don't have the footage in here because we would have been here all day. But after I go in with the dark green, I'm going to add another layer of the light green. So it's really just continuing to work up your layers until you like it. And then with the orbs, I had originally added some graphite. That didn't look nearly dark enough to me. So I did go in and add some green and a little bit of brown to those. I added some of the red color pencils to the ribbons, and then I used a white gel pen to fill in those little circle orbs that I have going on there. Like, they're kind of dropping from the top and landing on the book plate. And I really love how this turned out. So, my Zentangle Journal is really important to me. So it's really nice to have a book plate like this. I absolutely love the stamp and that gem in the center. I'd never done that before. Oh, I also added a highlight to that gem with a white gel pen, which I think just really makes it pop and makes it look shiny. And so I hope you enjoyed this project today. I know that was a quick run through of it, but to get really down and dirty in the details, we would have been here. I actually did this project over several days. So thank you so much for stopping by. I'll leave some links to some other videos at the end that you might be interested in checking out. And like I said, be sure to stop by my blog. I actually have 2 other cards on the blog hop, and I have a video for those as well. So thanks so much for stopping by, and be sure to comment on my blog for the giveaway.